Hey, hello everyone. Welcome, hello friends. I'm Chris with Elevate Cafe. So it is Monday, the 9th of February. We're beginning a new week in here. And definitely on Friday last week, we had a pretty good rally, a pretty good reversal in the market. I was saying on my last video on Thursday that I don't think the markets will bottom or create anything significant on a Friday, and actually did. So, we're taking we're going to take it for what it is, yes, meaning that they found some bids and they pushed it up higher, and here we are trying to, and they actually closed above or right at that 10-week moving average here on the S&P 500, along with Bitcoin, which had a again pretty strong move, and we'll touch on it in a second. It seems that these moves are giving somewhat the bulls another hope here that there could be something afoot where we could move back towards new all-time highs, and forget about all that kind of negativity that was present throughout the larger part of the last week at the depth of that sell-off, with the software and many other names that deteriorated, and we see this. You hear everybody kind of talking now about this transition between growth to value, like somewhat, like somehow, that's going to be the new driver of the market, and the equal weighted indices are the ones that, have not deteriorated and that shows rotation. I don't know. I'm not really subscribing to all of that at the moment. It's, to me, this still feels like a market that's very jittery, and somewhat continues to throw signs of problems, from the things that I'm looking at. So I would not be so quick to say that everything it's nice and dandy and we're gonna have a massive rally upwards. Now we could continue at a slow pace. We'll see, and if I just look at the way we closed last week, I can argue with the fact that they did fight those lows and they pushed it up higher. If you look at the S&P, if you look at the Nasdaq, this one it's a little bit iffier. It's still below. It's the only index that's below its 10-week moving average, and it did have a pretty decent recovery, but it will have to kind of get through these levels and see if it can force its way through. I know, on Friday, the Dow Jones actually pushed pretty strongly, and it made a new high, and it closed to new all-time highs here. You can see it on the weekly time frames again, just being rejected from the 10 weeks several times in this uptrend, which is shows the strength of this uptrend, and maybe the move into this value. But the markets are still, I think they're still kind of ruptured, and we'll continue to watch them. I do have some long positions, obviously. Yeah, obviously through my retirement and all that in the S&P and the, and the Nasdaq Composite and all of those. But in my trading accounts, I've shorted today. I'll show you some position. I've shorted ELF. It did not have. I actually didn't look in detail at the earning report, but all I have to see is just the reaction, which was fairly negative. So after a pretty quick move here, or a corrective move in what looks to be a nice ABC into the 200-day, or I think this is my 52-week. Yes, and now we have a break of this B wave, which tells me that we're probably going to continue to move lower. So I'm sure this one, will probably, I mean, if it's going to squeeze back out, I will get out of there. But that's kind of one of my takes. ARWR, it's a company that does, I think it's in the biotech, I think, and I just, heavily dislike this pattern when it's trying to go up. a couple of weekly candles that are being rejected, and a break below the 50. I think we're about to turn lower, but this might take a while. We'll see. I also have a short in SanDisk, based on a reversal pattern. This is going to be tricky. This is probably going to require several attempts. On SanDisk short, it's not fully developed yet, and it needs quite a bit more confirmation, but I'm willing to take a stab at it. I'm short Dell. This is going to be probably a slow mover, but again, just a break below key moving averages, and it continues to be in a downtrend here. I'll watch it. I know it's going to have earnings, so I'm going to have to deal with that. And then I'm long Kava for a while, and then I'm also long CoreWeave. We'll see how these go, but again, I have kind of a mixed stance in here in the market. So let's go back and continue to look and talk a little bit about what's going on in Bitcoin as well, and then I'll close it off, and maybe touch a little bit on gold and silver, because they're continuing to be pretty strong and just kind of holding above their 10-week averages. So that's a good sign. In terms of the wave counts in here, I don't have much to say. I'm gonna touch on that when I'm ready. Not much has really changed in the S&P or on the Nasdaq for that matter. So if you need a quick review, you can just access that video. But I don't have anything to say on that. But on Bitcoin, we did talk, and this is a look at the weekly time frame. We did talk on Thursday about that equality between this decline and this decline. However, this decline was much sharper, but now we have reached equality. Remember, we drew this box back then, and said, okay, you also have this kind of rising long-term average, and then you have the equality between this wave and this wave. So we this was a level where you could have expected some or sort of a reaction. Now this was a pretty strong reaction, I must say, right? Because Bitcoin went from 60 back to 70, so about a $10,000 move. Is this the low? It's hard to say, and if it is, then it started pretty nicely. It's still not convincing me enough that I should get involved in Bitcoin at the moment, right? I want to see this be the true low, and for that, Bitcoin needs to do a little bit more work. As I've mentioned last week, I think this will take some time, and you don't reverse in one day and go to new highs. So this will take some work, and I want to keep things in perspective, and I want to do that by looking also at this picture. So when you switch from a candlestick or a bar chart to a line chart, you can see the price on the closing basis without the intraday drama. Those are all overreactions, liquidity moves, things like that, leverage. And yes, you see that spike on the chart down to the 60, but when you look at the weekly time frame here on the closing basis, nothing like that appears. So based on this picture, and if you want to really stay real to kind of what's happening in the price, you got to look at the closing basis too. So look, we're still in a pretty decent downtrend. If you look at this picture in here, Bitcoin hasn't really done anything, right? It's still in a pretty heavy downtrend, and it's got more room to go sideways or maybe even lower, without being anything necessarily dramatic. So bottom line is the 50 that has crossed below the 200. The 50, yes, below the 200, and you're in a series of lower lows and lower highs. So it needs work. And by that I mean moving higher, crossing back above these levels. So now if I zoom out a little bit in here, and this is my I guess this average is the one where you have I forgot how they call it, but it's kind of when where Bitcoin have the actual realized price. I think they call it, but in here it's like a 40. I think this is my 40-month. Let me find it really quickly. A 46-month average. So it's almost like a 200 week. And when you look here, yes, they've kind of went all the way up there and they touch it. And longer term, that's a good place where people can accumulate. I mean, in here we've gone below it several times, but overall, it's kind of where you would say that below this one, people more longer term holders will start losing money or what have you. It's this reaction. I like it. We need to see Bitcoin kind of get up from here and stage strength, right, on a weekly basis, hopefully. So it could drag itself along for several weeks without doing much and then drop again. In terms of an ABC, it looks good. My only problem is that this is a very sharp kind of C wave. So, plenty of time to let it digest, plenty of time to let it work out. I think I've exhausted kind of what I wanted to say on that, but that's kind of where my mind is. It's with Bitcoin at the moment. So let's take a quick look before I close off at gold. And I mean, look, for the drama that it had and a drop from 56 here to 44, it recovered more than half of that move, looks like, and it closed pretty bullish on the weeklies. So it is volatile up here, but the trend is beautiful and still intact. And you can say kind of the same thing for silver. Is this trend interrupted? I mean, when you see a sell-off from 120 to 65, almost like a 50% drop, you kind of have to say yes, right? But when you look, at kind of how this looks, you're still above this uptrend, right? This moving average that's just kind of hugging nicely the prices. So it could have been just a price reset or nice rebalancing of price. It's shaken out of the over leverage and all that, and then maybe we can continue. My view is that we're probably in a fourth wave, and I'll continue to kind of stay with that. But so far, for anybody that kind of wanted to have a touch in silver, this is as good of a level as this one was. We'll see. On a closing basis below this, one would have to kind of be careful and maybe reduce positions. But so far, it's holding in here, and that's very interesting to see because based on the sell-off, I was expecting, further weakness and maybe a close at the weekly lows last week and trading with the bearish tone, and it's really not. But we'll see. So yeah, let's see quickly how the futures are looking before I close this off. Everything is pretty flat in here. So the ES, it's just above. All the moving averages in here. The wave count is very tricky. We'll probably touch on that tomorrow. I'll have to kind of revise it a little bit. And RTY. I don't know if we're I did take a bearish position on this. I just bought some puts via IWM, and if I go there, I think I'm going to remember what I did. So 266, I think I bought for March 260, 250 puts for the March 20 expiration. So I have 40 days maybe as a protection, as a hedge on those. And I do have some hedges on QQQ and ES, one for March and one for April, just to protect in case of a sell-off, some insurance. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with everything. So any questions, as always, guys, let me know. And I'm on Discord, Twitter, and YouTube. I appreciate to everyone that subscribed over on Substack, so that's great. That is a free service, so you can take a look at that. It's I have the Elliott Wave course, but that's I've done that several years ago. People still love it and they still kind of buy it. It's up there if you're interested. But other than that, Thank you so much for being here as always. Bye.